Hey, it's your guy Tyrrell back with the interviews. In today's video, we're going to look at the tactics that Luiz Felipe Scolari employed to help Brazil win the 2002 World Cup. When we break it all down and we do look at the board, we have to remember that Luiz Felipe Scolari did take over this side in June 2001, and the manner in which he was able to help Brazil win the World Cup little over a year was remarkable. When we look at Brazil, what we end up seeing here is that it was more of a 3-4-2-1, but in theory, when you look at the positioning of the players, at times it was more of a 3-3-3-1. What you have is Ronaldo up front spearheading the attack, and he was often doing a great job of making runs into the box, whether it be in between the back four or the back three, finding gaps between the center backs or in between the center backs and the full backs to get on the ball. With Ronaldo up front occupying two defenders, that left space for Rivaldo and Ronaldinho to scamper about and behind him. What we often saw from Ronaldinho was that he looked to drop off deeper to pick up the ball, and he was looking to dribble past opponents, and that was how Brazil was able to get some penetration, and he was able to shift out into those wider areas, particularly the left-hand side, where he would run at the right back or the right wing back. Ronaldinho didn't have the greatest tournament, but his ability to get past markers was pivotal, specifically in transition, and he played a key role specifically in Brazil's 2-1 win over England in the quarterfinal. Rivaldo offered you a different threat. He also wasn't great in terms of Brazil's overall build-up play, but he did a very good job of finding himself in goal-scoring positions just in behind Ronaldo as he broke into the box freely and he was able to provide that goal threat. Rivaldo would often drop off a bit deeper, and at times it would look like he would slow up the play, but he was often able to switch balls out to wider areas, and he was looking to combine with teammates, and there were times where he was able to receive the ball between the lines, and that's what you got from Brazil's front three. Ronaldo occupying the defenders, Ronaldinho's dribbling was supposed to play a key role, and Rivaldo, despite not really dominating the game from that attacking third, was able to find himself in good goal-scoring positions to play a factor. Meanwhile, in midfield, Scolari had to make an adjustment just at the start of the tournament when Emerson did get hurt and he was unable to feature. That ended up seeing Gilberto Silva take his position in that lone holding midfield role, and we saw Juninho Paulista play just ahead of him. Juninho Paulista was pivotal because he was able to provide that pace from deeper positions to link midfield and attack, and he was often key in transition, bringing the ball forward, dribbling past teammates, somewhat similar to Ronaldinho, but he did it in a deeper position to help Brazil in transition, and he was able to find that front three from that area. But when you look at their overall positioning, even if you have Rivaldo dropping off a bit deeper, you have four attacking players more so in those central areas, and then you have Gilberto Silva holding in that center of the pitch, looking to break up play if Brazil lost possession. Out in the wider areas was where Brazil had their real legitimate threat in terms of their build-up play, and that was because Roberto Carlos and Cafu played as wingbacks, and they predominantly held their position in the opposition's third, pegging back the opposing wing players or the opposing fullbacks as they often looked to attack and get into good positions. There were times where they made overlapping runs to receive the ball in half space to provide a goal threat or push forward towards the byline to deliver crosses, and that was integral based off the fact that Ronaldinho and Rivaldo were often in narrow positions, and if those two players ended up holding out wider positions, they were more than willing to make underlapping runs to get into goal-scoring areas. So that's where Brazil often offered a threat out in those wide areas through Cafu and Roberto Carlos, and that obviously does leave a gap for the opposition to exploit in transition if they win the ball. But Brazil were able to cope based off the fact that Gilberto Silva was looking to cover those areas. They had the left and the right center backs looking to cover those positions. And frankly, Roberto Carlos and Cafu had the energy to recover their runs and to get back into position. So Brazil was able to play this adventurous football based off the fact that they did have three key attacking players in central areas, but also based off the fact that they had two legitimate world-class wingbacks able to push forward to provide a goal-scoring threat, but also competent enough to get back into position to ensure that their backline didn't get breached. So now if we look at Brazil's overall attacking shape, you have 6 attacking players in the opposition's third, which forced them back. You have Gilberto Silva looking to provide cover in midfield and break up any counterattacks. And then you had a back three consisting of Roque, Edmilson, and Lucio. This possibly was the weak point for Brazil, Lucio was culpable for some big mistakes throughout that tournament, and Roque never looked comfortable when players did look to attack him, and frankly, that was the flank that they did look to exploit. But Edmilson did play a key role because when Brazil did have possession, he was looking to push forward to cover space with Gilberto Silva, but solely based off that fact that when he did have the ball, he was looking to help Brazil build out of the back, and his passing did play a key role throughout the tournament. However, going into that group stage, Brazil had a balance of good fortune, moments of brilliance, and their wingbacks playing a key role in finding Ronaldo making those runs into the box. We saw a bit of a tactical change against Costa Rica, who did play in a 3-5-2, but Scolari also did rotate his side, bringing on Juninho to play at left wingback, and we saw Edmilson replace Ronaldinho. Edmilson did offer a different threat as he did look to constantly drop deeper and use his pace to break forward, but that did play a key role in Brazil getting in beyond Costa Rica's shape, because what we often saw was Juninho and Edmilson combined down that left-hand side, with Edmilson breaking in beyond Solis and Wallace to receive Junior's long balls into the left channel, with Wright looking to come across. So in the first half, we did see Edmilson and Juninho play a key role down that left channel, and in the second half, we witnessed Edmilson starting to step forward into that midfield zone and combine with Juninho. However, it was the game in the round of 16 against Belgium that did force Scolari to shift his tactics. Belgium did play in a 4-2-3-1, and they often dropped off into two banks of four, but they did find a few threats against that Brazil backline. Verheyen was looking to drive into that right channel to receive long balls. Wilmots was dropping off a bit deeper to receive the ball in those attacking zones, and Peters was able to constantly get forward given the fact that Ronaldinho wasn't tracking his runs. However, when Belgium did get deep crosses into that Brazil box, they often fell into the hands of Marcos. Nevertheless, when you look at Brazil and how they look to attack the game, Ronaldo was key here because Belgium did play a high line. In that first half, it was Juninho's balls over the top for Ronaldo that played a key role. So it was a bit odd that Scolari took off his best player in that game for Edmilson. Edmilson's a more attack-minded player, and he ended up looking to break forward in that left channel. And Wilmots began to get into good positions to test Marcos. Edmilson did play a key role in Brazil's winning goal, and that does justify Scolari's decision. He did make that individual slalom ahead of Peters, and eventually when Ronaldinho did get across into the box, it was Edmilson and Rivaldo occupying the center backs before we witnessed a moment of brilliance from Rivaldo. Ronaldo added a second goal following Kleberson's run in transition, and that's how Brazil was able to escape Belgium. Oddly enough, when Scolari did make his tactical change, it was Juninho who was sacrificed despite being the best player against Belgium. What we ended up seeing was Kleberson move into that midfield with Gilberto Silva, and it was effectively a 3-4-2-1 now. You had two holding midfielders, and essentially Brazil did have 7 defensive players on the pitch. They did encounter problems against England. They didn't need a holder necessarily in that game. However, the problem they had against England was the fact that Sinclair and Beckham did a very good job of tracking the runs of Cafu and Roberto Carlos, and Brazil didn't have an outlet in those wide areas. Going forward with Edmilson looking to step into that midfield, that didn't work out because they had Owen and Heskey on either side of him, and when he did look to push forward, either Heskey or Owen would step into Edmilson to ensure that he couldn't play balls out of that back or step into that midfield zone. So when you assess how Brazil were able to create chances, plenty of them did stem in transition. We had Roque and Roberto Carlos winning the ball off Beckham in that right channel, and then we saw Roque play the ball across Mills into the path of Gilberto sliding into Scholes. The ball ended up falling into the path of Ronaldinho between the lines, and he was able to break at the England back four, skip past Ashley Cole, and locate Rivaldo peeling off Campbell to receive the ball in right half space, and he fired a low effort pass Seaman. That second half did start with Ronaldinho's moment of brilliance from a free kick, and then we ended up seeing Ronaldinho get sent off. So Brazil did drop to 10 men, and what they simply did was drop off into their base shape in a 5-3-1. We had Rivaldo looking to sometimes help out Kleberson and Gilberto Silva, and eventually Scolari did replace Ronaldo for Edmilson to offer more pace in behind Campbell and Ferdinand, but England simply reverted to delivering crosses into the box. They couldn't break that base A shape that Brazil did drop into, and it was easy sailing for Brazil to see out the game. When we look to the semifinal, Turkey looked to combat Brazil's 3-4-2-1 by playing a 4-3-2-1. With that being said, if they have that 4-3-2-1, they could have the front three looking to close down Brazil's center backs, and then have the midfield trio switching roles. You have one shuttle looking to step out to the wing back when they get on the ball, but then you have two midfielders to provide cover to deal with Cleberson and Gilberto Silva. However, the problem that they had was the fact that if Brazil could switch the ball out to Roberto Carlos or Cafu quickly, then there was space for them to break forward and join the attack. The other factor here was that Rivaldo ended up dropping off deeper in between the lines to receive the ball, and he was a constant outlet for Brazil to find when they looked to bypass that Turkey midfield. You had Belozoglu and Dybala looking to close down Roberto Carlos and Cafu when the ball was switched out to those areas, and then you had Karamoglu looking to hold that central midfield position as cover. Akel did provide a threat from right back, as we didn't see Ronaldinho or Rivaldo looking to track back once again, but this was about Brazil getting the ball out quickly into Cafu and Roberto Carlos, and they were causing a threat in that final third. And early on in that second half, Ronaldo was able to ice the game. It was Gilberto Silva pushing forward beyond Akel in that left channel, and he ended up poking the ball into Ronaldo, dropping off Korkmaz to receive the ball. Ronaldo was able to spin away from Korkmaz and break at Ozalan as he was looking to retreat towards the box, and with Penbe looking to shift across, Ronaldo was able to cut in and fire a shot on goal that Rekber should have saved, but it put Brazil up 1-0, and with Turkey looking to push forward, Brazil now had more space than they did in that first half in those channels to break into good goal scoring positions, and they should have won that game by more goals, with Cleberson in particular wasting a golden opportunity to do so. And then we get to the final where Germany opted to play the 3-5-2 without Michael Ballack, and the reason why they wanted to do that was because they were able to have Bode and Frings look to occupy Roberto Carlos and Cafu to stifle them out of the game, and that meant that they forced Brazil into central areas, so they had a disruptive three sitting ahead of the back three, and the back three were looking to play man v man against the Brazil front three, so that often did see Ronaldinho and Rivaldo drop off deeper, and even at times we did see Ronaldo drop off a bit deeper towards the halfway line where he was pestered and fouled. The other key factor here was that Germany were trying to get Neuville and Klose into that space ahead of Roque to get onto the ball, because they had a feeling that they could get their strikers to win those 1v1 duels. However, in this game, Ronaldo did get into good goal scoring positions, and Ronaldinho often found him in those positions, but Ronaldo was unable to make the difference early on. Cleberson was also one of Brazil's key players in that final, retaining possession and getting into good goal scoring positions, but not beating Kahn as well. But when you assess how Brazil were able to go ahead and win the game, it was simply off Germany mistakes. The first one being Ronaldo dispossessing Hamann in Germany's third and poking the ball across Metzelder into the path of Rivaldo ahead of Ramelow. And when Rivaldo forced Kahn into a save, he pushed the rebound into the path of Ronaldo, who ran off Metzelder and was able to tap in the effort from point blank range. And when we look to Brazil's second goal, it simply stems from Roque winning a Kahn punt and nodding it into the path of Cafu. He placed the ball around Bode into the path of Cleberson, breaking forward towards Metzelder. But look at Cafu making the underlapping run and taking Ramelow out of the game. That created space for Rivaldo to push into that central zone ahead of Link. And when Cleberson cut central and played the ball into the path of Rivaldo, he noticed that he dragged Link with him, and that allowed Ronaldo to break free towards the edge of the box. But with Asamoah coming in, Ronaldo was able to receive the ball due to Rivaldo's dummy and wrap the ball around the sliding Asamoah to put Brazil up 2-0. When you break down Brazil's 2002 run to that World Cup, they weren't the greatest side the country's ever seen, but they were the best team in the tournament. And Scolari's tactics did improve as the tournament progressed. He heavily relied on the wingbacks pushing forward to provide width and creativity in those wider zones, and he did rely on the individual brilliance of Ronaldo and Rivaldo, who did get into good goal scoring positions. What can be said there is that he did take the risk in bringing off Juninho in that game against Belgium. And moving forward, he offered a bit more stability in that center of the pitch with Cleberson joining Gilberto Silva. And overall, what you can say is that a year prior, Brazil lacked any guidance or direction and didn't look like World Cup favorites. And Scolari was able to turn that side around and get the best out of their talents. And tactically, he was able to show that with an adventurous 3-4-2-1. Hi everybody, thanks for watching and subscribe here for your latest tactical analysis and daily commentary on the InnerViews show. And if that wasn't enough, don't forget you could find more organic, unfiltered soccer/football analysis on the InnerViews podcast, the best soccer/football podcast in the world, available on iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, and any Android apps on your Android devices.